Hey everybody, welcome back to In the Kitchen with Chef Elaine. Today we have a fan favorite, meat loaf. Now I love me some meatloaf, super fast, super easy, and super moist. Let's introduce our ingredients. We're gonna have ground beef. We have our breadcrumbs, allspice, paprika, garlic powder, all-purpose spice, black pepper, onion powder, ketchup, mustard, and we're also going to be adding some eggs and milk to get it to that nice moist meatloaf. Let's get into it. Okay, so we have our seasoning on it. One thing I like to do, I like to layer all my seasonings on top. And then I like to work it in. And then I add in my wet ingredients such as the ketchup and the mustard, the eggs, and the milk. You don't want to overwork your ground beef because then it becomes very tough, right? You want a nice, moist, sort of like a crumbly type of meatloaf when you cut it and you start, excuse me, eating from it. All right. So the first thing you want to do is season up your ground meat, work it in that seasoning, then add your wet ingredients, and then form it into a meatloaf. This is a very versatile recipe because if you do not choose to do meatloaves, you can make meatballs out of it. Okay, so I added in my wet ingredients and I formed my meatloaf. One thing you want to do is let your ground beef, after you mold it, or even after you mix in your ingredients, if you want to immediately put it into the fridge because you worked that meat when you were putting in the seasonings and putting in the wet ingredients and making sure that all the ingredients was incorporated uniformly. So you want to give it time to rest, right? So that it's not tough when you cook it. You don't want to exert the overexert the meat. Okay, so one thing you want to do, once again, after you finish seasoning it, season your meat with the wet and the dry ingredients. You can immediately put it into the fridge, or if you want to mold it and then put it in the fridge, as long as once you're done, you put it in the fridge right before you go to cook it. Okay, I like to keep mine in the fridge for at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour, so that the flavors that I put into my meat can go and travel throughout. Okay. Okay, so last thing that we want to do here to add to our meatloaf is some bell peppers. You want to cut nice thin strips and then dice them up and incorporate them into your meatloaf. So I cut up my peppers, excuse me, and this is my final results for it. I'm going to just press down my formed meatloaf and incorporate it into it, and then let it sit for another 5 to maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so this is how my meatloaf looks. I normally add onions, raw onions into it as well. But because I put onion powder in there, I don't want my meatloaf to be too much of an onion flavor. That's not what I'm going for. So, and don't worry about the big chops of peppers. Once the oil starts springing from the meat, it's gonna cook those peppers and they're gonna be nice and tender once the finished product is complete. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge for another 5 to 10 minutes and then go ahead and start the cooking process for my meatloaf. Some people like to do it low and slow. Some people have a moderate temperature, 350, and cook it for about an hour or maybe a little 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go pop it in the oven for 350 degrees. So make sure you preheat your oven, which I'm doing as we speak. And I'm gonna cook it for 45 minutes to an hour, just looking at it through that interval between the 45 and the 60-minute time frame. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna have some rice to accompany our meatloaf. For those of you who's struggling with cooking rice, a nice helpful tip when you are cooking rice is not only the portion size, where you have 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. What I like to do, what my mom taught me, is that right before you go and cook your rice, you want to, of course, clean it. So in cold water, just rinse out the rice, and then let it sit for about 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Let your rice sit in that water, and then you can go ahead and cook the rice, and that's how you're gonna get perfect cooked rice all the time. Okay, so I'm halfway through rinsing my rice. I know that it is really ready to sit in that cold water for a while. After 3 or 4 rinses, when the water is less cloudy than it is now, that's how I know that the rinsing process of my rice is complete. Okay, so this is how my rice looks after I rinsed it 4 times. Now I'm just gonna let it sit for 5 minutes so that it can par cook, right? So it can par cook. That means that it's basically reducing the time that you have to cook the rice, and you're not going to get cooked rice, partially cooked rice, and partially hard rice. You're gonna have that nice, perfect rice. All right, so this is my meatloaf, just 30 minutes in, right? Look at all that oil that sprung out from it. I'm going to remove some of this oil and also top it off with some tomato sauce. And pop it back in the oven for an additional 5 more minutes, and it should be done. Okay, some of that oil has been removed. Now I'm gonna top it off with tomato sauce, and then I'm gonna put it in the oven for about 5 minutes. Maybe just broil it. I think that'll be it. It's pretty much done. Look at that beauty. All right, so this is our meatloaf. Ooh, looking delicious right out of the oven. I put some plantains with it. And this is the rice. Perfect rice, right? As soon as it started boiling, right? Look at that rice. Ooh, nice. As soon as my rice started to boil, I immediately put a lid on top of it to cover it and let it continue to cook. And I got perfect rice. All right, now let's get into our plating. Okay, let's get into this plating. Love it. Rice perfectly cooked. Meatloaf perfectly cooked. Plantains on the side. This is nice and moist. It still has the oils springing from it. I mean, doesn't get better than this, guys. All right. This is In the Kitchen with Chef Elaine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The ingredients and the measurements will be in the description. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend. See you back for the next video. Bye.